From the deep jungles, a kitten exists that is known as Shiv Marble. Able to take on entire armies by himself, Shiv Marble is an unstoppable killing machine who will stop at nothing to achieve his goals, even if it's at the cost of his own life. Good thing he comes with 9 of them. Greetings, and welcome back to Checkpoint Gaming, Exploding Kittens. With this episode, we will be going over the standalone versions of the game. With the party pack, it consists of 122 cards, is played with 2 to 10 players, and has some exploding kittens found within the deck. Gameplay consists of putting the deck face down in the center of the table and taking turns drawing cards until someone draws the exploding kitten. Once a player draws the exploding kitten, they explode and is eliminated from the game. So basically speaking, when a player explodes, then they lose while the player who doesn't explode being crowned the winner. When it comes to that of all of the other cards found in the deck, they will lessen the player's chance of drawing an exploding kitten. When it comes to that of setting up for the game, there are a few steps that are to be followed. First, remove all of the exploding kittens and diffuse cards from the deck. If playing a 2 to 3 player game, only use the cards that possess a paw print that is located within the corner, with all of the other cards being removed. If playing a 4 to 7 player game, only use the cards that don't possess a paw print that is located within the corner, with all of the other cards being removed. If playing an 8 to 10 player game, then all of the cards are to be used. Second, shuffle the cards and deal out 7 cards to each player, face down. Third, deal out 1 defuse card to each player, which is to be added to their hand. Each player is to keep their hand secret for the duration of the game. Regarding diffuse cards, they're the only cards that are able to save a player from an exploding kitten, and if it is played after a player draws an exploding kitten, the kitten is to be placed back into the draw pile anywhere the player desires instead of seeing the kitten explode. So with that said, it is a good idea to try and get as many diffuse cards as possible. Fourth, place enough exploding kittens into the deck that is equal to the number of players found in the game -1. When it comes to that of any extra exploding kittens, they are removed from the game. Fifth, return the extra defuse cards back into the deck. Sixth, shuffle the deck and put it into the middle of the table, face down, with enough space available for a discard pile. With this deck, it represents the game's draw pile. And seventh, pick a player to go first, using any method desired to select this player. When it comes to taking turns, the player will perform the following actions. This begins with the player deciding if they want to either play a card or to pass. If they decide to play, they are to place 1 card from their hand face up atop of the discard pile and follow the instructions that are found upon it. But if the player decides to pass, then no more cards are to be played. The player will then end their turn by drawing a card from the top of the draw pile and place it into their hand, hoping that they won't draw an exploding kitten. Play will then continue in a clockwise direction. During play, players are allowed to count the cards that are remaining within the draw pile, and since the draw pile will never run out of cards, there will never be any need to reshuffle the discard pile. There is also no minimum or maximum hand size a player is able to possess. But if a player ever finds themselves running out of cards from their hand, then no special action is to be taken. Play will just continue with the player drawing at least a single card during their next turn. With the basic rules taken care of, let's take a look at the cards that are found within the game. First, we have the game's namesake, the exploding kitten. Once drawing this card, the player will have to immediately reveal it, and unless the player possesses a diffuse card to counter it, said player explodes, thus causing them to discard their hand along with the exploding kitten. Second, we have the diffuse card. If a player draws an exploding kitten and they have a diffuse card in their hand, they can play it to counter the exploding kitten, which will prevent the player from being eliminated. From there, they will secretly place the exploding kitten back into the draw pile anywhere they wish, without either reordering or viewing the other cards. The player can even choose to hold the draw pile underneath the table so that the other players will be unable to see where they placed it. From there, the next player will go unless the initial player is to perform multiple turns. Third, we have Alter the Future. When used, it will allow its user to look at the top 3 cards of the draw pile and rearrange them in any order they like without showing the other players. Once done, they will return the cards to the top of the draw pile, face down, then continue their turn. Fourth, we have double slap. When used, it will cause its user to end their turn without drawing a card and have another player take 2 turns in a row. Unlike drawing 2 cards in a row, this card causes the target to take their first turn of play or pass, and after passing, they take another turn. If the target also plays a slap card, then they will pick another player in order to have that player take all of the remaining turns. Once that is done, then play will continue from the targeted player, and if the target draws and diffuses an exploding kitten during their series of turns, they will have to continue taking their remaining turns after they have reinserted the kitten. Fifth, we have draw from the bottom. At the end of the player's turn, it will allow them to draw a card from the bottom of the draw pile. Sixth, we have the favor card. When played, it will force any other player to hand over 1 card of their choice from their hand to the player who played this card. Seventh, we have feral cat. It can be used as any cat card and is unable to be used as a non-cat card such as shuffle or attack. Eighth, we have the nope card. When played, it will prevent any action from being performed unless the action is an exploding kitten or diffuse card, thus causing it to have no effect. And this applies to any card, pair of cards, or special combo. It is even possible for a nope card to cancel out another nope, thus creating a yup. A nope card can be played at any time before an action begins, even if it's not the player's turn. Ninth, we have see the future. When playing this card, it allows the player to look at the top 3 cards of the draw pile without showing the other players. Once done looking at them, place the cards back atop of the draw pile in their initial order. 10th, we have shuffle. When played, the draw pile is to be thoroughly shuffled without the player viewing the cards. 11th, we have skip. When played, the player will immediately end their turn without drawing a card. But if it's played as a defense against an attack card, then it will only end one of the 2-player turns. Because of this, 2 skip cards will have to be played in order to fully negate the attack card. 12th, we have triple slap. When played, it works just like that of a double slap, but is done with 3 cards instead of 2. And 13th, we have the cat cards. Although each of these cards are powerless on their own, they can be played in pairs or special combos. With special combos, they are used for advanced play and consists of any group of cards that are played at the same time. When a combo is played, the instructions that are found upon the cards are to be ignored with the player performing the following steps instead. When playing 2 of a kind, it allows for the stealing of a random card from another player, and it no longer applies to only cards that are without instructions. Instead, it extends to any cards that are found in the deck that possess the same icon in their corners as the cards found in the 2 of a kind. When playing 3 of a kind, it works the same as a 2 of a kind, but the player will get to name the card they want to obtain from the other player instead of taking one at random. If the target player possesses it, then the attacking player will get to take it. If not, then the attacking player will get nothing. Finally, when playing 5 different cards, it occurs when the player plays any 5 cards that possess different icons found within their corners. Once played, the player will get to go through the discard pile and take any single card that they'd like. With recipes for disaster, it consists of 121 cards, 13 recipe cards, 5 blank recipe cards, a cone of shame, a field guide, is played with 2 to 5 players, and has some exploding kittens found within the deck. Gameplay consists of what was described earlier, but with the following exceptions. With the 13 recipe cards, they describe different ways of playing the game, and since this version of the game comes with the best cards found in Exploding Kittens, Imploding Kittens, Streaking Kittens, and Barking Kittens, a large collection of cards exists to create new ways of playing. Each recipe contains instructions on how to go about assembling the needed cards, because if it didn't, it wouldn't be much of a recipe now, would it? And with each recipe, it contains the necessary ingredients for a standalone deck. Although some recipes and ingredients may seem unusual or incomplete, each recipe has been carefully crafted, hopefully with no real-world ingredients being used in their creation. So before modifying the recipes and giving them your own unique flavor, try the recipes as written first. When it comes to that of the 5 blank recipe cards, they're for homebrewed recipes, so feel free to create your own. And as of the writing of this episode, additional recipes are available at www.recipes.game for players to select and put to use. When starting the game, pick a recipe that looks interesting and matches the number of players that are participating. For first-time players, the nope sauce recipe is recommended. When it comes to that of setting up for the game, there are a few steps that are to be followed. First, pick a recipe and build a deck based upon the ingredients found in the recipe. Second, remove all exploding kittens, imploding kittens if they're being used, and diffuse cards from the deck. Third, locate the Each Player Starts With section of the recipe card, which will tell the player how many diffuse cards each player is to begin with, if applicable, and how many starting cards that is to be dealt out to each player. From there, insert any extra diffuse cards into the deck. Fourth, shuffle the remaining cards and deal out the proper number of starting cards out to each player, face down. With the Cone of Shame, it is given to the first person who forgets whose turn it is, thus causing them to become a human direction indicator by having to wear the Cone of Shame for the rest of the game. Since the cone is able to rotate around the player's head, it is able to indicate the current direction of play through the use of an arrow indicator that faces forward for all of the players to see. So whenever a reverse card is played, the Cone of Shame will rotate to indicate the new direction of play. Finally, with Zombie Kittens, it consists of 61 cards, with some exploding kittens found within the deck. Although it is typically played with 2 to 5 players, it is possible for up to 9 players to play, but only if Zombie Kittens is combined with any other version of Exploding Kittens. If any questions arise when it comes to that of setup or how specific cards are to interact, players are able to visit www.xzombiekittens.com/how, which will also provide in the description. Gameplay consists of what was described earlier, but with the following exceptions. First, if playing a 2-player game, only use the cards that possess a paw print that is located within the corner, with all of the other cards being removed. If playing a 3-player game, only use the cards that don't possess a paw print that is located within the corner with all of the other cards being removed. If playing a 4 to 5-player game, then all of the cards are to be used. And second, remove all of the zombie kittens from the deck and give one to each player. If playing a 4-player game, there will be 1 extra zombie kitten, which is to be shuffled back into the deck. Regarding zombie kittens, they're the only cards that are able to save a player from an exploding kitten, and if it is played after a player draws an exploding kitten, the kitten is to be placed back into the draw pile anywhere the player desires instead of seeing the kitten explode. So with that said, it is a good idea to try and get as many zombie kittens as possible. And if any of the other players are dead when a zombie kitten is played, then the player who played it will get to choose which dead player gets to come back to life. If a player draws an exploding kitten and they either don't have a zombie kitten or chooses not to play it, then they are dead with the exploding kitten that killed them being left face up in front of them and keeping the cards within their hand, if they have any. If they possess a zombie kitten and chooses not to play it, it gives the player the option of intentionally dying in order to avoid drawing cards for a while, as well as to shield themselves from the other players. They just hope that another player will eventually bring them back to life. While a player is dead, they are unable to take a turn. And though dead players won't be taking a turn, they can still play any card that possesses now printed on it or a nope card in order to have an effect upon the game. The playing of these cards can be done at any time, even when it wouldn't be their turn. And unless a card specifically allows for another player to do so, they can't steal cards from a dead player. Whenever a zombie kitten is played, it will bring a dead player back into the game, although a zombie kitten can still be played if there are no dead players. If they bring a player back into the game, said player will place their zombie kitten into the discard pile, followed by taking the exploding kitten they drew and the exploding kitten that is found in front of the dead player and put them back into the draw pile. They can place them anywhere they desire, as well as being placed into separate locations. The dead player is now a living player and will have to take their turn normally. If a player plays a zombie kitten and there are multiple dead players, then the player who played the zombie kitten will have to choose which one of the dead players is to be brought back to life and into the game. And when there is only one living player remaining in the game, they win. With the basic rules taken care of, let's take a look at the cards that are found within the game. First, we have the game's namesake, the Exploding Kitten. Once drawing this card, the player will have to immediately reveal it, and unless the player possesses a zombie kitten to counter it, said player is dead. If they die, the Exploding Kitten is to be placed face up in front of them while also keeping their hand secret. Second, we have this variant's namesake, the Zombie Kitten. If a player draws an Exploding Kitten and they have a Zombie Kitten in their hand, they can play it, if they wish, in order to counter the Exploding Kitten, causing the Zombie Kitten to be placed into the discard pile. And if there are any dead players, this player will have to select one of the dead players so that they can be brought back into the game. From there, they will secretly place the Exploding Kitten back into the draw pile anywhere they wish without either reordering or viewing the other cards. If bringing a dead player back into the game, repeat this action with the Exploding Kitten found in front of the resurrected player. Playing this card will also end the player's turn, and it can be played even if there aren't any dead players. The player can also choose to hold the draw pile underneath the table so that the other players will be unable to see where the Exploding Kitten has been placed. Third, we have the attack card. What this card will do is to end the turn of the player who plays it without them drawing a card and will force the next player to take 2 turns in a row. What this means is that the target of this card will take their turn as normal, followed by them taking another turn once their first turn comes to an end. But if the target of an attack card also plays an attack card, then their turn will immediately come to an end with the next player taking 2 consecutive turns. Fourth, we have Attack of the Dead. When played, it will end the turn of the player who plays it without them drawing a card and will force the next player to take 3 turns in a row for every dead player found in the game. But if the target also plays an attack card, then their turn will immediately end with the next player having to take the remaining turns along with any number of attacks found upon the attack card that was just played. With that said, this card can't be played if there are no dead players. Fifth, we have Clairvoyance, which has now printed on it. This card is to be played when another player diffuses an Exploding Kitten, which will allow the player to see where the Exploding Kittens are placed within the deck. With the Now feature, it allows the card to be played at any time before an action has begun, even if it's not the player's turn and can be played by dead players. The player can also leave their seat and walk over to the player who is putting the Exploding Kittens into the draw pile in order to see where they are being placed. Sixth, we have the Clone card. When played, it goes onto the discard pile and becomes whatever card is found beneath it, as well as adopting the rules found upon that card. But with that said, it can't be played atop of another clone card. But this card can't be played if it's not the player's turn, nor if they are dead, even if it is played atop of a card that possesses the Now symbol on it. The clone card can also be used with a cat card in order to form a pair and steal a card as long as that cat card was not played by another player. It has to come from the player's hand, and since it's part of a pair, it will have to be played with the cat card. Seventh, we have Dig Deeper. When played, it will force any other player to give the player who plays it 1 card from their hand, with the target choosing which card they will hand over. This card is also unable to be played on a dead player. The player can also decide not to keep the top card. Eighth, we have the Favor card. When played, it will force any other player to hand over 1 card of their choice from their hand to the player who played this card. This card also cannot be played against any dead player. Ninth, we have the Feed the Dead card, which has now printed on it. When played, the player who plays it will pick a dead player, and all living players that possess cards, excluding the player who played it, will have to hand over a card to the dead player. But this card cannot be played if there are no dead players. With the Now feature, it allows the card to be played at any time before an action has begun, even if it's not the player's turn and they can be played by dead players. 10th, we have the Grave Robber card. When played, it will cause all dead players that have cards in their hand to choose one and shuffle it into the draw pile. But this card cannot be played if there are no dead players. 11th, we have the Nope card. When played, it will prevent any action from being performed unless the action is an Exploding Kitten or Zombie Kitten card, thus causing it to have no effect. And this applies to any card, pair of cards, or special combo. It is even possible for a Nope card to cancel out another Nope, thus creating a Yup. A Nope card can be played at any time before an action begins, even if it's not the player's turn. It is also possible for a dead player to play this card. 12th, we have See the Future. When playing this card, it allows the player to look at the top 3 cards of the draw pile without showing the other players. Once done looking at them, place the cards back atop of the draw pile in their initial order. 13th, we have Shuffle, which has Now printed on it. When played, the draw pile is to be thoroughly shuffled without the player viewing the cards. With the Now feature, it allows the card to be played at any time before an action has begun, even if it's not the player's turn and they can be played by dead players. 14th, we have Skip. When played, the player will immediately end their turn without drawing a card. But if it's played as a defense against an attack card, then it will only end one of the 2-player turns. Because of this, 2 skip cards will have to be played in order to fully negate the attack card. 15th, we have Super Skip. When played, it will end the player's turn without them drawing a card. And if the player is supposed to take multiple turns, then all of them will end. And 16th, we have the Cat cards. Although each of these cards are powerless on their own, they can be played in pairs or special combos. They can be played as pairs in order to steal a random card from any of the living players, and they cannot be used against a dead player. With special combos, they are used for advanced play and consists of any group of cards that are played at the same time. It is worth noting that, although they work as described earlier, the combos cannot be used to target a dead player. And with that said, this will bookend the main series pertaining to how to go about playing the game of Exploding Kittens. We hope that you found this to be helpful and allowed you to better understand how to go about playing the game. As time progresses and any official updates or future releases get put out for the community, we will return to these episodes and update them accordingly to better reflect the changes that have been made to the game. With the nature of Checkpoint Gaming, we want to present the most up-to-date version of the game as possible to those who wish to play. So with that said, we hope you enjoyed our series pertaining to how to go about playing Exploding Kittens. If you liked this episode, feel free to give it a like, and if you want to stay up to date on any future episodes we upload, go ahead and subscribe. You can also support us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/checkpointgaming. We look forward to seeing you in the next game series, and as always, happy gaming.